amped up sports for both coaches and Coach Fickell. You first. They made a
Well, thank you. For us at LSU, I think it's been a great week. We're excited to be here in Tampa. I want to thank Jim McVay, certainly ReliaQuest and Brian Murphy and our host, Bruce Polly, who's been terrific this week. Our players have enjoyed Tampa, all that has been afforded them. It's been, for us, an opportunity to, bond as a team and certainly prepare as well. We've got a great opponent in Wisconsin. Coach Fickell's team is one that will play physical. It's a football team that, again, from our perspective, when you play a Big Ten team, will be well coached, well prepared, and we're excited about the challenge between an SEC team and a Big Ten team. So it's just, again, from our standpoint, we're excited about the matchup playing on New Year's Day. It's the first game of the day, and it should kick off a great New Year. So, again, excited for our university, and congratulations to Wisconsin.
Coach Fickell.
I would second that. I want to say thank you to, obviously, Jim and ReliaQuest for this opportunity for us, for our program, and for all of our kids. This is unique. Again, I think this is what college football has been about. Bowl season, January 1, this opportunity. I don't take that for granted. I know that there are times and there's an evolution to what it is that we're doing, but our program, and what it is that we see this opportunity this is a great opportunity. I don't know if you know this, but it's probably freezing in Madison, Wisconsin. I think it snowed today, so our guys maybe have even a little bit more appreciation than Coach's team. I'm sure in Baton Rouge it's still shorts weather and things like that. So our guys are enjoying. We had a little rain yesterday for practice. It was about 58 degrees, and they thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So we are excited, obviously, to be here, but it's also a great opportunity for us to prepare, for us to continue to push our program forward. I think this was practice 13 in some ways for us. A lot of those are, maybe the first 5 or 6 for young guys. So it's an opportunity for us in our program to also push and develop as well. And we're excited about, obviously, a great opponent in LSU and Coach Kelly. Obviously, got a little bit of a history and know a lot about him. This is going to be an incredible challenge for us, but I think that's what's exciting for us in our program.
Thank you.
If they make a movie about one of you two guys, who's going to be the star? Now, I'm thinking X-Files. David Duchovny for you, Coach Fickell, and Robert Patrick for you, Coach Kelly. Who are you thinking?
Wow.
That's pretty good.
I'm not sure of that movie. That's one for me. I've been maybe heard a little Adam Sandler in there. So I don't know. It depends on how you want to go, which direction. Ted Lasso is definitely not going to play me, or whoever that is. Maybe I'll let you go ahead and decide on that, and maybe my wife would have a better suggestion for that, and I'm sure some of the players would have a greater suggestion than I would.
Yeah, I would defer to you on movies. We don't have much time for movies. We watch a lot of film, but it's generally not of actors and actresses.
Right here. Next. There you go. Colton Bartholomew, Wisconsin State Journal. Luke, this is going to be Jake Renfro's first game in 2 years. You've been around him for a lot of that time. What have you seen him kind of go through battling these injuries and continuing to push and get himself to this position?
For everybody who doesn't know, Jake is a center. He obviously transferred from Cincinnati, played for us there for a couple years, and then obviously missed last year with injuries, missed a little bit of this year at the beginning of the year with some injuries as well. And just kind of how it worked out, he didn't get an opportunity to play a whole lot this year. And with our center moving on to the NFL, Jake will be playing for us at center. Jake's played a lot of football. I think that in a lot of this bowl season, I'm sure Coach would agree with you, there's some tough situations that you go through, right? There's guys that aren't playing, whether they choose to, move on to the NFL for other things and different reasons. It also gives some incredible excitement and light to some other guys. And Jake is one of those guys that unfortunately was playing behind a guy who was a really, really good football player that was fortunate enough to stay healthy all year and didn't get some of those opportunities. So in the last 3 weeks, there's been a light at the end of the tunnel, and Jake has, I think, really taken that, to heart, and I think that he's used this 14, 13 practices in a very good way. And I got no worry. I mean, Jake's played a lot of football. I know a lot more about him than the rest of our guys, and surely our offensive staff. But I think that we won't miss a beat with Jake.
Next.
perspective on what makes them stand out and why are they such a challenge for opposing defenses other than the fact they're very talented?
Well, each one brings a different element to the game. Malik's ability to run after the catch is extraordinary. He's a physical player, makes people miss, but breaks tackles, and a ferocious competitor. Brian, his ball skills down the field, his size obviously makes him a difficult one-on-one matchup. Playing him to the field obviously gives him a lot of opportunities to, obviously get down the field. And he had a quarterback who got him the football. So when you make that equation work, many of the times those guys came up big, made big plays and big catches, and we got them the football. So a little bit different in the sense of what they can do, but both as good as I've had in my 30-plus years.
Well, Snowden from The Advocate for Brian. With Joe and Cortez having that shared co-offensive coordinator title in this game, kind of what are they both responsible for in the terms of getting ready for this, and which one's actually going to be calling plays on game day?
Yeah, I think that what's really most important internally is the organization of the offense, because a lot of that is already in place and has been in place for the last, 4 or 5 months. So I think the way it's really filtered out is they've handed off different assignments within the staff itself. Joe is focused, a lot on the run game, protections, things that would center around the quarterback. Cortez much more on the passing game. They'll keep their assignments. Joe is in the box and Cortez is on the sideline. So those plays will generally probably come from the box to the sideline. And there'll be collaboration on a game plan. So they'll both be part of it. But again, I think from a communication standpoint, it'll come down from the press box and then into the game. And I'll get a chance to listen and make sure it's the way I want it to go.
Seth Lewis, WWL TV in New Orleans for Brian. Logan Diggs is someone who obviously dealt with injuries late in the season. How big of a role do you expect for him to have in this game, and how important is it for him to be out here with the team for this game?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Look, I think we all know that his physicality, his ability to play injury-free, helped our football team immensely. When he's banged up, obviously, we've turned to other players that we think very highly of as well. But he looks good in practice. He's got a great attitude, and we expect him to be the kind of player he's been when healthy for us. So we're really fortunate that we've got, I think, 20 out of the 21 players playing in this game, and that allows these guys to go out and finish on a high note. So it should be fun to watch them play.
Shea Dixon with On 3 for Coach Kelly. How has Garrett looked now after a couple of days? And more so, we talked to him yesterday, and he talked about that jump from the mentality of a backup to approaching it as a starter. How have you seen him sort of digest that?
Yeah, I think it's different. When you go from being the backup to the starter, everything's a little bit faster. There's, I think a little bit more of a need to communicate and take the reins. When you're a backup, you can kind of, muddle your way through it a little bit, fake your way through it. There's no faking now. You're running it. And, those guys want the ball too. You better get them the ball. They're not out there just for show. So he's got a lot of pressure on him. But that's why he's here. He loves the bright lights. He kind of rises to that kind of occasion. So he walks around the building a little bit differently. There's no doubt. But he hasn't played. And so the game is different than practice. So he's preparing, and when it's live, and Wisconsin's got a great scheme. They do a lot of really good things defensively, and he'll be challenged, so it'll be fun to watch him play on Monday.
Raise your hand if you need a question right in the back. There's one in the back as well.
Jesse Temple, The Athletic. This is for Luke. You've got a couple wide receivers who are part of the rotation that have decided to move on. Just for this game, what do you hope to see out of that group, and how much do you think it can be a bit of a springboard for guys who are going to be coming back and fulfilling big roles?
We talked about that with Jake Renfro. I mean, there's some guys that there's, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I think there's a different bounce in their step. And to be honest with you, I mean, they're the guys that are with us that down the stretch were in particular the guys that I think had a greater role anyway. And so it's just a thinner group. I think, in some ways that's better for those guys, right? They don't have to roll as much. They get more of an opportunity to get in the flow of the game. Where you were playing maybe 8 guys or 7 guys at that spot, now you're probably going to play 5 or 6. And I think all in all, it gives those guys a greater opportunity to get in the flow of the game. You're at the end of the season, you've got a condition to you. Like, I don't think it's going to be one of those things where, hey, we got to sub a guy based on his condition or how many times he's gone. So I think it's a great opportunity for them. And I think what we've got is the core nucleus of what I think gave us the opportunity as we started to play a little bit better towards the end of the year.
Jacques Doucet, WAP-TV in Baton Rouge. To both coaches, what are the pluses and minuses of NIL to this point? And what are the positives in terms of moving the sport forward and hurting the sport?
I don't think we have enough time.
No, I was just going to say, how long do you want this press conference to go?
Go ahead, Coach. You can.
Well,
have all that
in its purest form, you would ask any coach, and in its purest form, NIL is great. The problem is, when you add other things to it, it becomes a different animal. And when you add transfer portal and inducements and agents and other things, NIL then becomes, in some instances, pay for play, and that's not what it was intended. And when it becomes pay for play, it changes the equation, and it changes recruiting. It changes your roster. It changes the way kids go from being committed and having responsibilities to what's mine and when can I get it, and that's not what this was intended to be. So NIL in its purest form, I don't know there's a coach that wouldn't stand on this table and say that's a great thing. It's all the other add-ons that have made this thing so difficult and slippery to handle.
Yeah, without any structure, I think anything is a problem. And to me, where we are right now, a bit in college sports and college football in particular, is I'm not sure what the structure is. Do we have a governing, but do we have any rules that are actually that apply? And so you can call it NIL, you can call it whatever. The real, I think, issue is where are the structure, what are the rules behind what it is that we're doing? Because like Coach said, nobody would deny a guy an opportunity to, use his name, image, and likeness. It's just the structure that we are lacking in a lot of the things give a lot of flexibility, things like that. And I think that's what makes it difficult for us as coaches, but I think it also makes it difficult on the 18 to 22-year-olds. I mean, to be able to stay focused and to figure out what it is that you really want to do and how you want to do it. There's a lot of options out there that I think it make it much more difficult on them and their families.
Yeah. Listen, Alexander from The Advocate. For Brian, Zalance Hurd didn't travel with y'all down here. Do you expect to be getting him back at some point?
Yeah, I think we're going to have those conversations. I think he's looking at his role at LSU, evaluating it. There's been some conversations. So we're taking some time. We'll re-engage and have some more conversations after the game. But I think it's a good time right now for us just to focus on those guys that are with us right now, and then we'll pick up the conversations with him and his family after the ball game.
Leo Haggerty, Amped Up Sports. For both coaches, and Coach Kelly, you first. The both of you cut your teeth on non-Power 5 conferences as head coaches. I can't remember a New Year's Day bowl game where both head coaches were head coach at another school. Talk about your time at Cincinnati and how it affected how you were coaching at LSU and how you're coaching at Wisconsin now.
Well, I think in many instances, my entire journey from Grand Valley State to Central Michigan to Cincinnati, and Luke would probably say the same thing, you have to deal with less in some instances, and it makes you a better coach. You know, you have to know all of the jobs, and it makes you better prepared when you have more resources that you're more adept to make sure that everybody is running in the same lane. And so when you work at a place like Cincinnati that may not have some of the things that you have, you know, you have to make up for that, and you have to be more creative. And you can't say, well, we don't have it. That's not good enough, because you got to make do with not having things like that. And so I think it makes you a better coach. And then you take that with you at the next stop, and you become more creative, and you become more inquisitive in looking at how you can do it even better. And I think that that's how it's helped me, and I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Luke, but I'm sure that that helped him at Cincinnati as well.
There's no doubt. I think that you learn to not make excuses, first and foremost. And I would take this opportunity, because I said this when I was at Cincinnati, once you get into a point where we were obviously moving to a different conference, that I would say I don't understand why we still use the term Power Five. Yeah. Like, we're all playing the same game, right? We still have the same. We all understand that there's some differences in what it is that we're doing, but sometimes when we use that term, we kind of look down upon or tell that those guys aren't at the same level as us, when in reality they are. Maybe they don't have as many things, and when you were there, like Coach and I were, you do learn to, you know, not make excuses for things and just try to do more with less. And I don't mean that with players. I just mean that sometimes with resources and things that you're doing. So, and twofold for me, I didn't get to have some of the other experiences that Coach had of coming up through Grand Valley and then Central. I was, you know, in some ways fortunate but unfortunate to, you know, be at, you know, obviously a Big Ten school and then go on. You recognize what it is that you need to do and what it is that you have, and then try to be really grateful for the things that you do have. And so I think more than anything for me, it helped me kind of be organized and understand that, you know, you don't always need more to have success, and you got to find the ways to use the things that you do have.
Yeah. Next. Hands.
Luke, obviously you coached Wisconsin in last year's bowl game, and you talked about like the experience of meeting families and getting around them. Can you kind of compare and contrast what this trip is like versus what last year's was like?
Well, this trip, my family's here. Last trip, it was over Christmas, and my family didn't come. Uniquely different, but I think that as we're getting closer towards the game, more, you know, families and things start to roll in here. So there'll be obviously a little bit more activity with that. Right now, it's been a lot different in the ways of just focusing more so on the game. Last year, it was, you know, a much different perspective and what it is I was trying to do and learn in the process. And now it's so much different in how you are going to progress your program and looking at a, you know, this is not just an opportunity to play an obviously incredible game and an incredible opponent, but also at where you're headed and the things that you're doing in months this time. Because as Coach will tell you, that the evolution of what we're doing, this isn't just about playing in a bowl game. There's so many other things going on within your program, within your own guys, that this is a really, really critical time in all that we're doing, whether it's some of those families, the guys within your own program, or even what's going on right now in recruiting.
Scott Rappley with the Baton Rouge Advocate for Coach Kelly. To follow up on Jock's NIL question, to have this come along after you've been used to doing things a certain way or dealing with a certain set of circumstances, to have this come along, you know, is it an aggravation? Is this something that's bothersome with NIL? Like you said, all the things that come along with it that aren't what were designed. Or as you've coached, you like a new challenge comes up, it's just another new challenge that you've seen that is similar to others over the years?
I think it's, you know, improvise, adapt. You know, we're putting the plane together at 35,000 feet. There's no rules. And so you're trying to, you know, figure this thing out as you go. You know, I think there's just a lot of things that we're trying to do that make sense, that still keep the student athlete at the center of this. And look, we're parents as well, right? So we try to keep an eye on, you know, how would we want our sons to handle these situations, and how would we want them to learn from them? Because all money's not good money. And so sometimes lessons have to be learned. Sometimes you might lose somebody in NIL because of these. So we're going through these experiences right now, and some of them are hard. But we're hopeful that down the line that we can get some guidelines. We can get maybe a calendar that makes sense. Right now, I'll just give you an example. We're preparing our bowl team right now, but we were recruiting freshmen. We were dealing with the transfer portal. We were getting our players evaluated for the NFL draft, and we were trying to retain our players. All 5 of those things at once within a 30-day window. So that doesn't make sense, and so there are so many things that are going to have to change along the way if we're going to do all these things and not have some issues, come up like they have.
Coach Kelly, Shea Dixon with On 3. You talked about Jackson Howard as one of the guys who had sort of upped his stock a little bit with these bowl practices and getting a look at others. Who else has sort of upped their stock, or going into this game, but more so into the off season where you'll have more of a look at them?
Well, one of the things that we can talk about is getting this bowl game as the additional game. Really, obviously is probably the most sensible thing that's ever occurred in my time, where these kids can play in this game after they've used their 4 games, because you get a chance for these kids to stay motivated and practice and play in this game. And Jackson's one of those guys that gets this opportunity. A guy like Kylan Jackson, gets an opportunity to play in a game like this, which is really big for him. So, a couple of the defensive guys that, needed more reps. I think the freshman corners, all of those guys get an opportunity. As Luke mentioned, this is our 13th practice, so it's a spring ball for all of these young guys. They get more opportunities to go out and develop more, and then they get to finish it up with a game against a Big Ten opponent. So I think a lot of our young players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, get a great opportunity with this opportunity.
Joey Johnston with the ReliaQuest Bowl. Coaches, this particular bowl has matched up the SEC and Big Ten for decades, as have some others. There's always comparisons and with fans on the styles of play and the rivalry between the two conferences. Now, obviously, the two conferences are building up to places we haven't seen before and will continue to be preeminent conferences. How do you think each conference views the other one, and is there a real rivalry, a measuring stick when you get into this part of the year about winning a game against the SEC and the Big Ten?
Well, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be in the Big Ten for a long time, and back into the Big Ten obviously this year, and it's always kind of been these two groups saying that they had the upper hand in college football in general. And I think in the last year, I think we've truly recognized and see that the two conferences that are basically pushing and growing what it is that's going to happen in college football is the SEC and the Big Ten. And I know that I kind of always believed that, being in the Big Ten for a long time, and now seeing what's happened in the last year or so, that I think it's kind of showing itself all over the place. And so I think there is a rivalry. I think that to say that the conferences play different and things like that, that used to be one of the bigger deals. I think that there's a lot more that's coming closer and closer together as far as how they play the game. It's not just that the Big Ten runs the ball and the SEC plays with that. I think that as we continue to grow what's happening in college football, you're seeing the two premier conferences basically playing more similar maybe than they had in the past.
Yeah, I don't see a huge schematic. Like, I wouldn't say schematically the Big Ten does this or the SEC does that. I think it's more in terms of these are the two lead conferences in college football. If there's legislation coming out of the SEC or the Big Ten, it's generally going to change the landscape of what is out there. If we're aligned together, the SEC and the Big Ten, you're generally going to see movement. And so I think that the two conferences in many ways are aligned in much more. than just football. I think philosophy is probably the biggest thing, and I think that's a good thing. With so many moving pieces in college football today, and I think the one thing that you can count on is that the SEC and Big Ten are pretty much going to be aligned in one thing, and that is pushing college football to be the number one game in the country.
Coach Kelly, a player like Deshaun Womack, who has done some things at times, but obviously has to be a more complete player. What about him in a game like this? He's obviously excited to play after we talked to him yesterday.
Yes, again, another true freshman that'll get an opportunity to play quite a bit. Development is an interesting, word, right? You develop at different times throughout the year, and then, it's time to come out of the oven, right? You keep him in there for so long, and then it's time to play. We feel like it's time for him to play, and so, we're going to put him in a position where we think he can help us. He's done a really good job this year of maturing. I think a lot of it was his maturation. That was the first time that he was put in front of the media, and that was not by accident. So, we do things here pretty intentional, and so we think he's ready. So it'll be fun to watch him play.
Coach Peter Blake of the Sports Web, how much of a challenge is it to prepare without Jaden Daniels? What has he meant to your team? And furthermore, what would you tell a general manager that separates him from any other quarterback in this upcoming draft?
Well, I'd love to play with Jaden Daniels on my team. Who wouldn't? He's fun to watch. Obviously we feel really good about Garrett Nussmeier as our number 2, and obviously he's going to be. He's got the keys to the car, going forward in 24. So, the offense, he knows it well. He'll be able to do the things that we need to do offensively, run it, throw it, do the things that are necessary to be a championship football team. Having said that, Daniels is, clearly, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the country. He has developed the ability to push the ball down the field like no one that I've coached. His quarterback savvy, his ability to manage all protections. He calls everything at the line of scrimmage, gets us in the right plays. He's going to walk into the building, and he's going to command the respect of a building. And look, these are professionals. You can't walk in there and not command the respect of a building, and that's what he'll do. And I think certainly his play showed itself on film, but what they don't know about him is that he's a leader, and he'll command the respect of the entire room. Thank you.
Just a couple more questions, sir.
Listening with the advocate. Brian, just a real quick today.
Yeah, he's just had the flu, and we just kept him back at the hotel. It just felt like it was best to give him a day off and get him healthy.
And you mentioned, Garrett maybe having the keys in 2024, but you also bring in A.J. Swan. Just
Yeah.
kind of how do you plan on kind of balancing that and approaching that quarterback room?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to last year where, Jaden came back, but we gave Nuss a fair shot at competing for that starting position. And Nuss pushed him, but Jaden was better. And we'll have the same situation where, AJ will have a chance to take that job from him. It is not a closed position, and we were transparent with him, and Nuss knows that too. We're going to be honest and open about the competition, and you don't bring in a guy who started at Vanderbilt and say, listen, you're coming in, but you have no chance. That doesn't make any sense. And Nuss knew that too, and we'll move forward going into the spring.
Shea Dixon with On 3 for Coach Kelly. Malik and BT playing in this game, 2 potential first rounders, not opting out. I was just curious, did that take any convincing, or is that just what they're built like?
it's 90% what they're built like, and 10% they love to play football. They love their teammates. They love playing football, and look, everybody plays this game, and I think the core of it is you got to love to play. You can't be playing for other reasons, and if you love to play this game and you love it for the old-fashioned reasons of, I love my teammates, I love playing, for LSU, then you're going to have guys playing these games. These two in particular, also in Malik's case, he's got some things that he wants to individually accomplish too, and that's okay. That's okay, because he starts with the premise of, I want to play with my teammates and finish this out, and I love to play football.
Right here, last question.
Eileen Natchik at Channel 8 here in Tampa. For both of you, have you ever vacationed in Tampa with your families? If so, what's your favorite memory? If not, what's been your favorite part about the city so far?
I have not. I think maybe Clearwater Beach one time. I've got a lot of kids, so it's we don't try to go back to a whole lot of places because we kind of wear our welcome out pretty quick, and then we don't get away that often. I think they've enjoyed. I think they're at Busch Gardens today. I think they're looking forward to going to the beach tomorrow. As for me, I don't get to join them on a whole lot of those things. I'm not saying that's a bad thing sometimes. We'll reconvene with them up a little bit later, but just being with the family. For us, to be honest with you, this is the first time we've had our whole family under kind of the same roof, because as we moved away to Wisconsin, my son was in college and he stayed where he was, and then my daughter went to college. So this was a really unique time. That it's a bowl season, and this is about a bowl game, but it's also about some families being able to come together and enjoy some of this time as well.
We did, as a family, when I took the job at Notre Dame, I was at Cincinnati, and Cincinnati was going to be playing in a bowl game, and I wasn't coaching in the bowl game. So it was the first time as a family that we weren't going to a bowl game in many years. So we just kind of said, what about Tampa? And we went to Tampa, and we went to Busch Gardens. We stayed right on the waterfront. I think we stayed we're at the JW, and I think we stayed right across at the Marriott. And we had a great time, and they're all coming up today, so we'll get a chance to spend some more time with the family. So we enjoyed it.
We got one more here from Leo.
Leo Haggerty, Amped Up Sports. For both coaches, and Coach Fickell, you first. If you can't be playing in the Final Four, is there a better place to play on New Year's Day than Tampa, Florida, in the ReliaQuest Bowl?
No, there's not a better place.
No, absolutely
There you go.
not.
That's a good one to end on.
Thank you.
Very
Absolutely not. Go Tampa.
We're going to have our special presentation now. I'd like to introduce